What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Connor Speed6, and today, as you can see, we are finally in F1 2022, driving around my Speed6 motorsports car around Paul Ricard in France, because the next F1 2022 round on the schedule is in France. Now, what we're going to do today is a little less racing and more of the technical stuff, and that is taking a look at the wheel settings that I have for the Logitech G920. The Logitech G920, as most people do know, is not the best wheel for any type of sim racing. However, it does get the job done. These settings are really going to be best for anybody. These are anywhere from beginner to pro. I am somewhere deep in the middle of that. I am definitely not a beginner, however, I am definitely not a pro, as you can see by my lackluster driving and slow times. What we'll do first is we'll dive into the settings of the brakes first and foremost, because anyone who has a Logitech G920 knows how horrible the brake pedal is on this wheel, and I've already let my slow time past my current time. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the settings. Okay, now first things first, what you'll want to do is head over to your settings in the pause menu, or if you're on the home screen, go to game options and then settings. Head over to controls, vibration, and force feedback. And then what you have here is you have all of the different wheel options that the game does support. I have, again, the Logitech G920, which is similar to the G923 and the G29. I've already got a custom wheel set up. Now, first thing is first. Again, the brake pedal on the Logitech G920 is horrid. It is a terrible, terrible brake pedal, and unless you have ABS on and you're using the brake pedal, you're just gonna lock up all the time. So what I highly recommend doing is going ahead and changing your brake pedal or reverse option to your clutch. The clutch is the far left pedal on your pedal setup. So what I recommend doing is always using the clutch pedal for your brake pedal. What I've done is I've just mapped the clutch to the brake pedal then, instead of the actual clutch pedal. The reason for this brake pedal on the G920 is very, very tight and very sensitive. Once it gets to about 50% compression, it seemingly is always 100% compression in the game, so you end up locking up. So instead of dealing with that, just use your clutch pedal. It's a lot easier to feather and use gently, rather than having the heavy feedback or the heavy pressure back to you from the actual brake pedal itself. So the main thing you're going to take away from this video is to always map your clutch as your brake pedal. Now, please remember when you're in online lobbies that you have your brake pedal mapped to your clutch pedal, because I've actually forgot that before and hit the brake pedal and straight lined a corner and absolutely destroyed an entire lobby at Silverstone. So I'm really, really sorry to everyone who I killed at Silverstone. Anyways, moving on from the mapping. So here are the calibration options, starting with steering dead zone. What that is the amount of space from dead center that the steering wheel input you put on the wheel is actually registered within the game. I have mine set at 0 because I want those immediate effects. Reason being, the Logitech G920 seems to have a lot of play, and unfortunately it has a little bit of movement before it's actually registered in the game anyways, at least mine does. So I have my steering dead zone set to 0 so I can have that immediate response and that immediate feel while turning and adjusting and maneuvering the steering wheel. Steering linearity. This is the sensitivity in between the first amount of lock you put on the steering wheel to the full amount of lock you have on the steering wheel. The more closer to 0 that you have linearity, the more even your sensitivity is going to be, from, we'll say, 0 to 90 or 180, however much you have your steering angle set to. The higher the number, the less sensitive, closer to 0, we'll say, and the more sensitive you'll get to your full lock position. The reason I don't have mine set super high is because, again, I want that little sensitivity, and whenever I go full lock, I don't want it to actually be more aggressive while turning. I want it to be even all the way around, as it would be in a true vehicle or a real vehicle if you were driving on a racetrack. So steering saturation, this is another sensitivity thing similar to linearity. However, what it does is it actually adjusts how sensitive the steering is, or the turning is, throughout the entire lock. Now, what I always recommend doing, this is me personally, again, keeping it set at 0, because again, I want that more natural real feel when I'm turning. I don't want the steering wheel to be more sensitive at a certain angle or less sensitive at a certain angle, honestly, because I want to have the full scale feel of what the car actually feels like against the track. You can turn this sensitivity up if, for example, you have your wheel rotation set to like 540, which I don't personally recommend. That will make it a little bit more sensitive throughout the entire lock of the wheel, so you won't necessarily need to go full lock at 540. So I personally recommend just keeping it set at 0. You can maybe adjust 1 or 2 blips here or there to adjust that accordingly. Now, throttle dead zone. The reason I have this set to 2, the throttle dead zone is, again, the amount of pressure applied to the actual real life pedal under your foot in correlation to when it registers in the game. The reason I have it set to 2 is because I like to rest my foot a little bit on the pedal and I don't always want it to register. And it actually gives me a little bit of a window when I'm feathering, so I don't feather too hard and accelerate too quickly out of a corner and spin out. Have it set to 2. You could adjust accordingly. If you don't like it and want that more aggressive right on throttle feel, go ahead and do that. But again, since I'm sort of a foot rester, I like to have a little bit of a dead zone so I can still press a little bit on accident without it registering in the game. Throttle linearity, again, this adjusts the sensitivity at the first amount of press versus the full amount of press on the throttle itself. The reason I have this set to 0 again is I want the real natural feel, and if I'm accelerating out of a corner and I keep accelerating and pressing, the further I press down that throttle, the more sensitive it's going to become and put more power to the back wheels, thus again making me spin out. The less likelihood I have of spinning out, the better off it is, honestly. Throttle saturation, I like to keep this set at 0 too. Again, it just adjusts the sensitivity as you're traveling through the throttle or the gas pedal in real life in correlation to the game itself. Set it to 0, it's even all the way down from initial pedal travel all the way to full press on the pedal. Now the brake dead zone, again for me, I have a 2 dead zone set because I, again, am a foot rester, and there were many times I was accidentally resting my foot on there and was braking on, for example, a long straight, and it was slowing me down tremendously. So I have mine set to a 2 dead zone. That way it helps me be able to rest my foot on, again, the clutch pedal, which is your brake pedal in this game, on the Logitech G920 without actually hitting the brakes. Brake linearity. So I actually adjusted the linearity and saturation a lot on this. I kept it at 0 just because the clutch pedal used as your brake pedal helps both of these things tremendously. So brake linearity, again, that adjusts the pressure of the initial travel versus the full press of the pedal. You do not really want to adjust that because, again, the brake pedal or braking is so super sensitive on, first of all, an F1 car and on a Logitech G920. So keep it as is at 0. Same with the saturation. You do not want to increase the sensitivity, I promise, unless you just have a really, really light foot. And if you have it set to the clutch, you could always adjust it up a little bit, so you have to push the clutch pedal a little bit less, because the clutch pedal does have more travel than the actual brake pedal itself. But me personally, I prefer to have my brake saturation and linearity set to 0. All right, so let's move on to the vibration and force feedback. A lot of this on here is typically all just person specific. So while these settings may be best for me, other people may prefer a heavier or lighter wheel. No chatter, because this steering wheel does have a lot of chatter when it comes to the vibration. So a lot of people may actually prefer to turn that down to have less chatter in the G920. I do have my vibration and force feedback on. The strength that I do have set for my vibration and force feedback is 50. As you can see, the vibration and force feedback strength is just the overall strength or the overall resistance in the wheel, from the wheel to your arms and your hands. The higher the number, of course, the heavier the steering and feel is going to be. So I like to keep it kind of lower at 50, because it still gives you that resistance and that weight of the wheel, but it's not too heavy to where you feel like you just came out of a boxing match with Mike Tyson at the end of a race. The on-track effects, I actually pumped that up a little bit because I like to feel the resistance of the car itself on the track. That does unfortunately provide a little bit more chatter coming from the drive system of the Logitech G920. So you can turn that down a little bit if you want to hear less of that. Me personally, I kind of like to feel the bumps and feel the the wiggling, I guess, of the car and the steering wheel, just under normal driving conditions. The rumble strip effects, I like to turn it up just a little bit, not too much. it still gives you that minimal vibration feel in the steering wheel. You can hear it, of course, in your headphones and through your TV speakers. So I kind of wanted that just in correlation with what I was seeing on the track and hearing. The off-track effects, really not important because the whole goal, of course, is to not go off track. But I do have it set to 45. I turned it down just a little bit, just again for less chatter on the steering wheel. Again, the goal is to be within the white lines, right? Now the wheel damper, I actually turned this way up because, again, this is the tire force, or the feeling of the tires while turning on the surface of the racetrack, coming back through the steering wheel to your arms and your hands. So I like to have that feel a little bit heavier because it makes you really want to kind of fight the car and makes you feel like you're really immersed in the cockpit of the car driving. So I have mine turned up all the way to 80. Again, it's a little bit more heavy through a corner, for example, than it is just on the straight. On a straight, the wheel is a little bit loose, because not loose, but a little bit easier and less strong coming back through the wheel itself, because I have the force feedback set to 50. If I bump that up, of course, that would be tighter. But the wheel damper is the resistance, of course, of the tires on the track coming back through the wheel. I like to have that heavier feel going through a corner personally. Understeer enhance I do have turned on. That basically gives you more feedback whenever you're driving through a corner and the car starts to understeer, or if you do lock up your brakes, it really gives you that and tells you that back through the steering wheel so you can adjust accordingly. I personally prefer to have that on. It's up to you guys again, but I like the feel of it through the steering wheel. Now the wheel rotation on F1 2022 actually gives you two options, because we do have supercars in F1 2022. We have wheel rotation options for F1 and F2 cars, plus the wheel rotation for supercars. Now for F1 and F2 cars, I prefer to have 270. That gives me, again, a good amount of lock, a good amount of steering, just like an F1 car would have. There's not a lot of times that an F1 car rotates their steering wheel past, we'll say 90 degrees, or 180 degrees even. That's never something that typically takes place unless you're at Monaco. So 270 works for me. So one way and then the other way again, because the maximum rotation itself is 270 degrees. So that's X amount this way, Y amount this way. Maximum wheel rotation for supercars I have set to 540. That, of course, is a full 360 turn plus 90. So that's what I personally prefer. That way it feels, it's more realistic to a real life car, and you driving, we'll say, a McLaren 720 around a racetrack. You're going to have more wheel rotation to lock than you would in an actual F1 car. But again, going back to the initial talking point, always set your brake pedal to the clutch pedal. That will help you so much more than you could ever imagine. If I were to, I could just make, honestly, a video touching on that alone, because that is the biggest thing and the biggest hang up and the biggest issue for people racing in F1 2022, especially for me, that I've noticed, because this brake pedal on the G920 is honestly pretty awful. It is one of the worst attributes of this steering wheel, so I definitely recommend changing it over to the clutch. That way it makes it a little bit easier for you, and you lock up a heck of a lot less. Whoa, about Senate. Those are the wheel settings for the Logitech G920 in F1 2022. I really hope this helps you guys and helps you become smoother and faster racers. It honestly has helped me a little bit. I'm not the fastest on the game yet, but again, I do like to still hop in lobbies and have a little bit of fun. The game is fantastic. I definitely recommend trying these settings out. Let me know how you like them down in the comment section below. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please be sure to leave the video a like, leave me a positive comment, again, and some feedback and thoughts on these settings down below for me. Please be sure to subscribe for more weekly content like this. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. As always, I have been Connor Speed 6. Until next time, much love, everyone. See you soon.